Coming up, we're going to be talking about what Bob Iger said during the Morgan Stanley conference call, which includes cutting back on the amount of international originals, Hulu being a tricky business, and much more. Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On at disneyplus.com. It's Friday, it's time for a quick Disney Plus news roundup. So yesterday, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, took part in a Q&A session at Morgan Stanley conference. Now there was lots of stuff that he spoke about. It was about a half an hour, 45-minute presentation. It's not really a presentation, but just talking, so there's lots of information came out. So there's a full list of articles over at What's on Disney Plus with full quotes. So I'm not going to go into all of them because it was about a 20-30-minute conversation. But I wanted to pull out some things that he talked about. One of the many topics that got brought up was the future of Hulu. Now, ever since he said that everything was on the table earlier this year about the future of Hulu, but the idea of maybe selling it or even keeping it or selling it to somebody else, one of the things that he brought up was he keeps bringing up about the idea of general entertainment. There's too much of it, it's undistinguishable, and therefore he wants to create content that is pretty cool. And he even brought up the idea of kind of with HBO of the making sort of more content. That's great, rather than trying to do loads of content. He also kind of mentioned in FX. I'm not surprised in some ways because I feel like they're almost setting up FX to be like their version of HBO, where they can put maybe some of the more mature content in that category, and therefore that kind of keeps it away from the Disney brand. One of the things he also spoke about was how at the minute there are 6 to 7 well-funded, aggressive streaming businesses out there, all seeking the same subscribers. However, they're all creating the same kind of content and not everybody is going to win. This definitely seems to me that they've realized that Hulu it's just not going to hit it. It's not hitting any differently. They can use some of it. So I think that's why he's being very open about the fact that in some ways being quite vague about it. Now, I think he's being vague about the future of Hulu for a couple of reasons. First off, because if he's trying to sell it, he doesn't want to put too much commitment into what they're doing. And if they're going to make some changes, they don't want to be revealing their hand too much. It's kind of open negotiations with maybe Comcast or another company. He did say that the environment is very, very tricky right now. And before we make any big decisions about their level of investment or their commitment to that business, they want to understand where it can go. And he says, they're still early in it. I find that whole thing about the idea of them being early in it maybe doesn't really wash. I mean, Hulu is now 15 years old. It's not new. It's been around a while. But they've not been able to kind of get out of that zone of where it is right now. He's definitely looking now that he thinks that the future of linear is changing and they need to kind of migrate to kind of do the two together. He is, however, very bullish on the idea of Disney Plus. He was very open about the fact he thinks it's got lots of great opportunities. He's, as he said, extremely bullish over their streaming projects, notably Disney Plus, and he's going to be trying to get. They are looking to get more subscribers. They are looking at their pricing strategy, so we might start seeing some price rises coming in. It would make sense if they did that. If they start putting more, I think it kind of catch her into. They can't keep putting the prices up without putting more stuff on there, but they want to make more good content rather than making lots of great content. As he said, it's great for the consumer because they get so much access. But he was very, very optimistic about Disney Plus, and he said, now they're kind of hitting the point where the COVID restrictions are kind of over and they can kind of do a lot more stuff. However, there was a side effect to that in the fact that he's going to be cutting back on the amount of international content that's going to be coming up. He said that it seems like there's a bit of an imbalance with this kind of structure where they want to reduce the expenses, and they've been obviously making a lot of noise about trying to reduce their expenses by 5.5 billion. About 3 billion of that is going to be on the entertainment side, and it looks like the international side is where they are looking to make a lot of savings. He said there's a disconnect between what they're making in international markets and what they're making in the United States for global distribution. And I think that we might have created an imbalance of sorts because territory managers of Disney Plus platform were leaning more into what they were producing locally, which has some value, and perhaps not relying as much on what is being produced for global consumption, and that's another opportunity for them to reduce expenses. So the couple of key things to take away from there is I do think that they've in some ways been making so much content internationally, and I think we're going to see a drastic change in how much they're making, or maybe focusing on the idea of trying to make, if they are going to make something international, try and make it more global. I think in some ways, like stuff maybe made in Australia and the UK is a bit more broad. I would imagine like things like Wedding Season and Extraordinary, much more global in terms of who they can reach. Whereas some of the stuff maybe being made like in Australia, like the football shows, might not be. And obviously, like with shows being made in Korea, Latin America, there's a lot of stuff being made. I think they are going to be drastically reducing how much they make. I also, a lot of people have been saying, well, they need to make it, the simple thing is, we're a few years into this now, they're maybe not bringing in as maybe subscribers as they imagine. I'll be honest, I don't think Extraordinary and Wedding Season probably brought in that many UK subscribers. I just don't think they have. Might be different in Korea with those Korean dramas. Different again in Japan with some of the, each country's going to need to go on it. I think like with Japan, like with anime and stuff, that's a little bit more, they can use that globally. Maybe they're going to reshift what they're making. I think there's also been questions about, like quotas and stuff, because each country requires stuff. I do think we're kind of into a zone now. We're a few years on from when some of these rules got brought in. For example, here in Europe, some of those rules got brought in 2018, 5 years ago. And they seem to be sliding over to a new way of kind of almost studios will just have to pay a little bit of the money that they make from streaming to local to make stuff. And I think that's where they're going to be going, rather than saying we need 20, 30%. Because the trouble is, you can't have a global platform do that, because the math just doesn't add up. Because you can't have 20% Canadian, 30% European, 20% Korea, 10% French, 15% Australian, 20% Africa, 18% from Latin America, and 50% America. It just would, the math just doesn't work. And so they'd have to put out different things. I think, the businesses and the countries and stuff are all coming together to try and work all this out. Ultimately, we have to protect local productions. I don't want Disney Plus just being full of, and also not just even just Disney Plus. If they don't do it for all of the, Netflix, Amazon, eventually those streaming services can completely take over, and there's no local content being created. So that's not good for all of us outside of the US. I like watching British shows. I like watching Australian shows, Canada shows, etc. So, and I think that's a key thing that we are going to be aware of. But I think we are drastically going to be seeing a bit of a cutback in how much they're making. It might take a year or two to kick in. Some of the stuff that he did mention, the fact that they're going to be slowing down their general entertainment, but it's going to take a while because deals are in place and stuff. He also spoke about with Marvel and Star Wars, they're sort of slowing down on that, taking their time to develop the Star Wars films. Maybe the new Avengers film is going to have more new characters, and the fact that maybe they don't need as many sequels. I think that might be a little bit of a dig at Ant-Man, because that one didn't kind of hit where they wanted to. There's a lot of great stuff there, but like I said, you'll find all the details over at What's on Disney Plus. There's a lot of stuff to go into. Personally, my big takeaway from kind of what he was talking about is we are going to see less from Disney, but more quality. They're going to be refocusing a little bit more. Now, it's kind of funny, because when you say, like with Disney Plus, people say, like cutting back, some people only think of Marvel and Star Wars, and they're thinking here, it's like, the trouble is, it's not so much that they're spending so much on, it is, they are producing so much content for National Geographic, Freeform, FX, Searchlight Television, 20th Television, ABC, all of these different platforms are all costing a lot of money to make content for. And if they maybe strategized a little bit more and focused a bit, they maybe wouldn't need as much to fill those channels if they organise things a little bit, mate. The concept of exclusive definitely seems to be kind of disappearing. And there was also another key thing, I just remembered this one. The return of windowing and release. So we're going to see it. We've seen it with Avatar: The Way of Water, where it's coming out on digital first and then going to streaming at some point later on. They haven't announced a date. We're going to see a lot more of this. They're going back to that. Might not be the same way as how long it was, but movies need to make money, and that's ultimately where they're coming from. And so we're going to see movies go to cinemas, then they're going to go out on digital platforms, and then they will go to streaming. I think they very much realise putting movies straight onto streaming, they're just losing money. They aren't making money. They're not pulling in. They can't pull in enough subscribers now to warrant those costs. They've got the subscribers. They're going to keep obviously growing them. But putting a brand new original movie on Disney Plus, I mean, they just put one on today, Chan Can Dunk, it doesn't necessarily bring in the amount of money that they need to warrant the cost of it. I think we're just seeing them reorganising stuff around a bit, following the Netflix model. Might sound good in theory, but they had already had an entire business they've been doing for like 90, 100 years, and it worked. And, you know, completely stripping that down, they're losing money by not doing it. So I think we are going to probably have to get used to more films going cinema, digital, Disney Plus. Not probably going to take longer to get there. We're going to see less probably Disney Plus originals, more sharing between linear and streaming. Obviously, that's only in the US. Internationally, they've kind of got rid of that. Yeah, so we're just going to see a bit of a clamping down, but that might not be a bad thing. It might just, consolidation sometimes can be good, can strengthen what they're thinking of, and that's going to be hopefully a good thing for us subscribers. But I'd love to know what you think of all of this. Go check us out over at What's on Disney Plus to read all of that stuff. A couple of other quick bits as well. Today, obviously, we've been Friday. We have got a brand new film, Chan Can Dunk, basketball film. It's okay. There's a nice little twist in it that I wasn't expecting, which made it a lot more enjoyable because it was a little bit generic. But watch it over the weekend. Not amazing. If you like basketball, you like it. There's some good elements to it. It was a lot better than I was expecting. Also today we got a new Miley Cyrus special. Now that one's dropping a little bit later, not 6 p.m. UK time. I think it's about 1 o'clock Eastern time. So it's going to be dropping a little bit later. So they might be doing, again, some more experimenting with this kind of stuff. But yeah, so there we go. So that is all of today's Disney Plus news. Remember to go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. And I shall see you guys soon. Laters.